Hi makers, it's Jo from Minerva. Today I'm going to do a quick tutorial on patch pockets. Patch pockets can add that little bit of extra detail that makes your clothes go from sort of homemade to pretty custom made looking, but you need to put them on really accurately because they can make or break a project. I'm going to show you today two ways. So I'm going to show you how to put in a woven pocket, patch pocket, and how to put in a stretchy pocket, and that one is the tricky one. You will find patch pockets on the back of trousers, on shirts, on t-shirts, and at the front of dresses. You see two pockets on the front of the cocoa, and unless you can really put them on properly, it's probably not best to put them on at all. So that's the cocoa t-shirt, which I'll show you second. And first of all, I'm going to show you how to put in a patch pocket and make sure that you get that top edge really flush, especially where the seam allowances are on the side. To make a patch pocket, it's really tempting just to turn in all of the edges by ½ centimetre and sew it to your garment, but you get a much better top line and side line if you follow this procedure. So you cut out your pocket 1 centimetre down from the top edge, draw a line, and then 4½ centimetres from the top edge, draw a line. You can also use the proportions of your pocket on your pattern, but I'm just showing you the procedure, and then you can work up to your measurements. So you should have a little seam to turn over and a line for the top of your pocket. So with the right side of the pocket facing you, turn down and press. And then the little seam that you drew, you push that up. Pin the sides. And with your 1.5 seam allowance from the edge of the fabric, from the raw edge, you're going to sew just the top of the pocket, not down here, just the top. Okay, snip off the corners, and that'll give you a bit more space in the corners to turn your pocket out, and use a seam gauge or a point turner or chopstick and turn your pockets and get really sharp corners. You will see that by enclosing all of that top edge, it's automatically given us our 1.5 seam allowances along the sides. What it's also done is it's completely enclosed that end, and I didn't used to make my patch pockets like this. I used to sort of fold all that corner in, but then when I sewed it to my garment, so say I was putting my patch pocket in, the sort of raw edge sort of splurged out of the side of the top pocket. So because that's already enclosed, it keeps that top corner neat. Now we can press down the side seams, we can press up the bottom seam, and then it's ready to attach to our garment. If you want a decorative edge along here, then you do that now. You can use a twin needle, but however you want the top seam of your pocket to look, you have to do that before you sew it to the garment. Once you've sewn it to the garment, it's too late. So we need our top stitch along here. To secure pockets, you might try adding a triangle in the corner. That's really useful if you've got patch pockets on jeans like the Lander pants from True Bias, or Heyday dungarees where you want to have a breast pocket. Cleo pinafore dress by Tilly and the Buttons, all of those benefit from having a little triangle in the corner. Just makes it a little bit more long lasting. I'm sure this is up for debate, but this is how I like to do my patch pocket. So I want to go down, up, across, and then down the side, because that's given 2 lots of stitching here. Along the side, back, up, out, down the side of the triangle, and then back up. So then I've got 2 lines of stitching there. So I've reinforced there and there. And there are the triangles in the corners, and you haven't got any of the edge of the seam splurging out at the top or at the bottom. Snip your threads to keep it tidy. So that's a patch pocket. That's the technique I use when I'm putting a pocket on a shirt, or a pocket on a bag, or patch pockets on pyjamas or trousers. Next, we're going to have a go at putting on a stretchy pocket. A stretchy pocket is slightly trickier to put on because as you're sewing it on, you can get sort of ripples and stretches in it, and you need to be able to put it on straight. You will, when you put a stretch patch pocket on, you need a much smaller edge stitch. When I put the other patch pocket on, it was more of a Topstitch, so it was sort of 3mm from the edge. Or 2 or 3. Now you need to get it really, really close, and the only way you can get it close enough is if you tack the pocket on. For a stretchy pocket, you're going to cut out your pocket piece and keep it really nice and flat. So sometimes the edges will curl over, of course, but you need to press it flat. You're going to mark on the top of your pocket, and you're going to finish the top edge. Now, you don't really want to finish it by turning it over, because you'll get a little ridgy line across the top of your pocket. So try and do it a flat technique if you can. I've used an overlocker. You can zigzag. You can even just put a straight stay stitch in there because it's a jersey, so it's not going to fray. But when it's pressed flat, you don't want a big ridge along here. So try and use a flat finishing technique. And we're going to do that same procedure we did for a woven pocket. We're going to fold along the top seam line, top fold line. Pin the ends. And sew just the top of the pocket down at a 1.5 seam allowance, so we make those automatic seams. You want to try here and use a straight stitch. I know when you make your top you use a stretchy stitch on your seams, but we don't want this to stretch out. It can be stretchy in the middle, but we don't want the sides to be stretchy. When it's sewn along the end, you're following the same procedures that you did for the woven pocket. So you're going to take some of the seam allowance out on that corner, some triangles. And now this is a little bit different. We're going to put some tiny little strips of interfacing along the other edges, because when we're trying to get that into a square, the edges and the corners might ripple out. So we're just going to get some little bits of very light interfacing. And cut some 1.5 seam allowance interfacing. Doesn't have to be really accurate, it just needs to be to go along the edge. And we're going to sew those in the seam allowance. So if you imagine it turned out, we want this to be pressed under there. So with the gluey side up, I'm going to put the gluey side onto the seam allowance. You don't want the gluey side on the pocket, otherwise it will show as a little ridge, or it might bubble on the right side. So just under the seam allowance, with the gluey side stuck to the seam allowance, and press those down. Once you stabilise the sides, you'll have really straight edges, which will take to sewing the two pieces of jersey together better. And we're now going to stabilise across the bottom. I'm just going to take a tiny bit off the corner, not into the corner, but just off the corner to reduce the bulk, and then put a strip along the bottom. If you start with a really nice square jersey pocket, you've got a really good chance of having a nice square jersey pocket on your item. If you start with something sort of half folded in and wobbly with pins on, then you're probably not going to get the best pocket, and it's probably best not to worry about it and leave it off. So you've got to sort of take the time to have a jersey pocket or not have a pocket at all. Next, to sew it to your item, I haven't got a whole item, I've just got a little sample. You're going to place your pocket on the pocket markings, and don't pin in the edges because that's quite thick, so you will pucker that. So I'm just putting pins in this thinner jersey here because this is only one layer of jersey. You get it all square, and now I'm going to tack that in place. Really doesn't matter how you tack it. I've done some diagonal ones, some running ones. It just needs to hold it down, and you need to keep it away from the edge, because if you try to pull out tacking stitches on stretch fabric, you can really stretch and mar the fabric. So just keep away from the edge, because that's where you're going to be doing your stitch line. Okay, to sew it on, don't start right at the very end, because sometimes you can sort of chew the end down. So start about 3 millimeters in, go forwards and then backwards, and that will stop the end chewing. You might need some slightly longer stitches because shorter stitches will chew along. You want to be able to come right along the edge. Pull your threads through to the back, and then you can hand tie them off. And then from the front you've got a pocket, and it still looks a little ripply at this stage, but you just need to do a final press and take out the tacking. The pocket is really square, it's not rippling, it's still stretchy, still a stretchy pocket, but we just stabilised around the outside so we could get a straight stitching line. And that technique, even though it's not explained in the instructions, is perfect for putting pockets on the cocoa. My last example is a pocket with a curve. So this is a pocket, a slanted pocket, this one, and it has a curve edge, and I'm going to show you a technique to get a really good curve, because sometimes you get lots of ripples and puckers around here. This pinafore is the Jane Bobbins and Buttons pinafore, and that has a curved pocket, but you sometimes see curved pockets on a bib or on a skirt. So you'll be looking for how to finish a curved edge of a patch pocket. If our pocket is curved and we've got a 1.5 seam allowance, just under 1.5, so literally 1.4, we're going to mark the seam allowance all the way around the pocket. I'm using green because you can see it, but I would be using white, and I would be using just little dashes, but I just want to show you. So you're going to mark the seam allowance all the way around, and you're going to stay stitch that line. So under the machine you're going to do one line of stitching all the way around, and this will help the fabric to turn exactly on that fold, so our fold won't start to drift into other woven parts of the fabric. The next thing we're going to do is put our machine on a longer stitch and do an easing stitch around the edge of the pocket. The easing stitch is within the seam allowance. And it only needs to be on the curved edge of the pocket, and then you're going to draw up the easing stitches, but spread them really evenly, so you don't want it to gather, you just want it to draw the curve. So you just want it to flip up the edge and give it a little bit of a helping hand to go around the curve. So your pocket now should be starting to curve, but you've got that stay stitching line which stops the gather puckers from going onto the pocket side. Next you'll prepare the top in the same way that we prepared the others. So I'm going to zigzag the edge. Fold it to the right side and then flip up the raw edge, the same as we did for the woven pocket. Sew down the hem edge. Tidy up because we've got a lot of ends now. Easing stitch, stay stitch, seam line, trim off the corners as before. This is all familiar now. Flip it out, use the point turner This is a cotton duck, so this is a bit firmer now. And now, because we've done all the preparation on the curved edge, we can pin this curved edge down. So the top's all completed. You notice on a curved pocket we deal with the curve first and then the top second. And now we can pin all that curved edge down, and we can use the stay stitching line, because that's helping us to keep the curve. And you just want to roll the stay stitching line to the back. You don't really want it rolling round to the front. And then I can tack that and press it, and that's how you get a curved edge. You need this line of stay stitching to stabilise the shape so the curve isn't more pronounced on one side than another, and you need the easing stitches to pull up that inside. If you've got particularly thick fabric, you can sort of forego the easing stitches and do some clipping, and that will get it a bit flatter. So it depends what fabric you're trying to use. If you've got a thicker one like this, you can just flatten those down. If you've got a fine fabric, then the easing stitches will probably do their work on their own. When it's all pressed, you can get it quite flat, and then it's ready to apply. So a curved pocket, it could be like the one on my pinafore with a larger curved edge, but that was eased in exactly the same with easing stitches between here and here. And this is just the sample one that I've shown you. Have a go at that curved edge. I hope that's given you a few tips for putting on a really sharp patch pocket. Do come back for more sewing tutorials soon. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.